Hey there, welcome to lesson 2.3. Let's talk about how to make decisions in your code and how to repeat things using loops. So, what we are going to learn in this lesson is if else statements. These are basically called control flow or conditionals, and I would like to show you now an example first. So, keep your main function. And let's say we have the score of a student. So we now have the score of a student and it is 85 and it is stored in a variable called score. Now let's say if we want to print the student's grade and if the score is above 90, we want to print A grade. And if the score is below 90, we want to print B. How will we do that? Well, we do that with an if-else condition. If now in our parentheses we check our condition. If score is greater than or equal to 90, then we do our curly brackets. And here is where we execute what we want to do if the score meets this condition. So in our case, we want to print the grade A. Now let's run. Nothing happens. That is because our score is actually 85 and it is less than 90. Now, if we want to print something else when our score is less than 90, how do we do that? It is very easy. We actually use else. Else, and then curly brackets again. Now here we can print whatever we want if our score does not meet this condition right here. So this condition in our case is 90, and if it is not 90, we will print grade B. Now let's run it again. And we see our grade is B. Let's say the score now is 75. And now if we run it, we still get the grade B. But the student should actually have a grade C because the score is now in the 70s. How do we do that? Well, we chain our ifs. So we can actually check multiple conditions with more and more ifs. We can check if one condition is true or another is true. How do we do that? Let me show you. So we change our else to an else if and add another condition. Now, if our score is more than 80, it will print the grade B. And below this, we type else, curly brackets again, print grade C. I forgot the semicolon. And we see we now have grade C. Why? Because now it checks for all three conditions. And we can use this chaining method to check for as many conditions as we want. We can do it perhaps 20, 100, as much as we want. So let's move on to the next topic, loops. So, what is a loop? A loop lets you repeat a task over and over. Let's say you want to do something 25 times. As a human, you will have to move it 25 times, but computers can do this very fast. So, that is where computers outshine us. And how do we create a loop? Very simple. Delete all this code and we write for and then opening and closing brackets. Then we create a new int and then we set a condition for it. I equals less than 5. And finally, we increase it by 1. Plus plus means increasing it by 1. Curly brackets. And that's it. That's our loop. Now, inside these curly brackets, we can do whatever we want. So what I'm going to do is print all the values of count. Now, we print count is $I. Dollar means that the actual value of I will be replaced here. So let's run it. And we see this function runs 4 times. Count is 1, then it loops once, and then it increases I plus plus to 2. And because it is still 2 is still below 5, less than 5, then it runs one more time, and now it prints print count is 2. Then runs again, this time I plus plus 3, and the loop keeps repeating until we meet this condition. So let's move on to another example where we combine these two and show you how it works. So we start and first of all, delete all the old code and let's write a new loop. So we have created a new loop, and in this loop, as you can see, the condition for matching it is set to 5. So this loop will run as long as I is less than 5. So 4 times. So what do we do next? We create a new condition which checks the variable I. We check the variable I and we see if it is larger or smaller than 3. If condition I is greater than 3, print I is greater than 3. And for our else condition, we type else print I is less than 3. And let's run this code again. Aha, we see the code runs 4 times because it starts at 1 and then it sees I is less than 3 or not. In this lesson, we learned flow and loops. In the next lesson, we are going to get to the Flutter nitty gritty. We are going to learn about widgets. So, see you in the next lesson.